All our time for now. Thanks for being with us tonight.
NBC Nightly News is next. We'll be back tonight at 11. Until then, take care of yourself and each other. Good night.
Good night.
Soviet troops come under attack in Azerbaijan, and Gorbachev may be prepared for more military action. One of Colombia's most notorious drug bosses tells his side of the story from prison. And all these claims about oats and cholesterol, a new twist tonight.
NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw.
Good evening. Mikhail Gorbachev's troubles are not getting better tonight. They're only getting worse. Now, Soviet troops have been killed as they try to keep order in Muslim Azerbaijan on the Soviet border with Iran. As a result, Soviet forces have orders to fire in self-defense. So the small-scale civil war between Muslims and Armenians in that region is much wider tonight, and it is much more dangerous. NBC's Peter Kent is in Moscow.
Soviet television reported tonight that the Defense Ministry considers the situation in parts of Armenia and Azerbaijan to be intolerable, that peacekeeping forces have been authorized to fire on militants to protect themselves. To make the point, a young Soviet soldier was shown, wounded by Muslim gunmen, it was said, while his unit was defending a group of Christian Armenians. Soviet television seems to have taken a deliberate decision not to broadcast any new pictures of military activity. The most recent pictures from the region, shown only once on a midday newscast yesterday, showed troops firing into the air to control a crowd of Azeri Muslims. Since then, servicemen have been killed and attacks staged on military posts by what the Ministry of Defense calls armed bandits. In the Azeri town of Ganja, troops are said to have been cut off by roadblocks and attempts made to capture the local military airfield. In Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan, crowds are said to have formed a human wall to block Soviet tanks. In the Armenian capital of Yerevan, industrial activity has been stopped by fuel shortages resulting from the Azeri blockade of rail transport into Armenia. More refugees arrived in Yerevan today, most with harrowing accounts of their escape. But there is growing evidence that not all Azeris support the persecution of Armenians. This woman says a Muslim family hid her family in their home, risking their own lives. Not an isolated incident. These pictures, taken earlier this week, show a Christian family being sheltered in the basement of a Muslim home as mobs stormed through the streets of Baku demanding Armenian blood. Peter Kent, NBC News, Moscow.
The death toll from the fighting between Azerbaijanis and Armenians ranges now from 58 to 80. So Gorbachev now has major problems with the Soviet economy, a militant independence movement in Lithuania, and a civil war in Azerbaijan tonight. NBC's Jim Miklashevsky is at the White House tonight. Jim, the administration seems to be staying out of the Azerbaijan mess. What's the reason for that?
Well, several reasons. One, they don't want to say anything here that might inflame the situation. Second, they point out that this is an ethnic, not politically related problem. They point out that the ethnic violence and rivalries there predate any current political problems. Third, Tom, they acknowledge that there's really not much the U.S. could do about it anyway.
And what's their analysis, Jim, on how all of this will affect Gorbachev and his other difficulties, especially with the economy in Lithuania?
Well, there is some concern here that if this situation drags on for some time, it will simply exacerbate Gorbachev's political and economic problems. They point out, however, that if Gorbachev were to eventually be forced out, that it would probably be by another moderate, not a hardliner. After all, there are still some in the administration, like Defense Secretary Richard Cheney, who say Gorbachev's on shaky ground and may not succeed. But for now, the United States believe that Gorbachev's survival is in the best long-term interest of the United States. According to one official here, it would be unfortunate if the man of the decade didn't last through the month. Tom.
Thanks very much, Jim Miklashevsky at the White House tonight. And there is talk tonight about Soviet forces now leaving Czechoslovakia. The Czech government said today that the Soviet Union has agreed, in principle at least, to withdraw all of its 80,000 troops in that country, but no timetable has yet been set. Poland tonight is confronting a major new challenge to its economic austerity policy. More than 6,000 coal miners now have gone on strike in southern Poland. They say that they're being squeezed by inflation. They want more money. Also coming up here tonight on NBC Nightly News, the latest offer of the Colombia drug cartel to negotiate a ceasefire and a drug baron talks. And in Southwest Africa, a unique plan to protect a rare breed of desert elephants. Enlist local tribes as elephant guardians.
Hot tea all day doesn't stop this dentuera from hitting high C. Ah!
Hot tea? Fix-it-ent and forget it.
Give up hot chocolate just because I started wearing dentures? Scab!
Hot chocolate? Fix-it-ent and forget it. Heat-resistant Fix-it-ent spreads evenly to keep on fixing loose spots, no matter how often it gets hot.
I can drink hot coffee all day and still help a lady.
Now available in new convenient pocket-sized Fix-it-ent Traveler.
Hey, Vince, want to talk to your wife?
Don't hurry, home soon.
Did you hear that?
Hey, who ate the pretzels, huh? He always eats them all.
Okay, bye.
Yeah, honey, how about the sandwiches, huh?
Hey, but I'm out of Miracle Whip.
Hi, Phil. I'm out.
I gotta go. Come on, guys, where are you going? I'm behind.
A sandwich just isn't a sandwich without the tangy zip of Miracle Whip or Miracle Whip Light.
Not a bad bluff.
In the Colombian drug war tonight, a new offer, an offer of peace from the top drug bosses. They call themselves the extraditables. They said they have now accepted the triumph of the state. They're ready to end their violence. They said as proof, they are releasing a woman and her daughter kidnapped a month ago. The two were freed in a poor neighborhood of Medellin. The woman carried a statement by the extraditables. The drug lords said they would stop drug shipments and give up their weapons in exchange for unspecified constitutional and legal guarantees. They also offered to end terror bombings and to stop executing politicians, judges, and police. For his part, Colombia's interior minister said this offer was not likely to be accepted. He said the government had won the drug war by refusing to make concessions or to halt extradition of suspects wanted by the United States. What happened to this man, Carlos Later, is what all the cocaine bosses fear, after all. Once a top drug lord in Colombia, Later was captured, convicted, and put in prison in the United States. Now, for the first time, he's talking and he's naming names, including the name General Manuel Noriega. NBC's Brian Ross has details tonight.
This is the federal penitentiary in Marion, Illinois, the black hole of the American prison system. This is the last stop for the country's most notorious terrorists, spies, and drug dealers. For the past 18 months, no prisoner has been more closely guarded here than Carlos Later, the most important Colombian cocaine boss ever captured and convicted. After refusing to talk with American reporters, Later agreed to a taped interview with the German magazine Stern, which has now been obtained by NBC News. In a 3-hour taping in German and Spanish, with Later still in leg irons and guards in the room, Later refused to answer many questions, but he had a lot to say about General Noriega of Panama. The interview was conducted 2 months before Noriega was captured.
I can tell you with complete certainty that together with other associates of mine, Noriega was given several $1 million.
Toda la coca, la marihuana.
All cocaine, marijuana, weapons, ether, acetone, and any smuggled goods confiscated in Panama became the property of Noriega and his thugs.
Later says Noriega then sold back the drugs and other items seized to drug dealers in Colombia, Panama, and the United States. And Later says the millions of dollars paid to Noriega were for what Later called protection.
Esa protección.
I would not be able to go into exact details as to the extent of that protection, because this would not be in my best interest.
Later is serving a sentence of life plus 135 years because of the cocaine smuggling operations he ran on this island in the Bahamas, Norman's Key. In the interview, Later praised the Prime Minister of the Bahamas, Lyndon Pinling, as a marvelous and honest leader. The Prime Minister has long denied allegations of drug corruption involving Later, and Later would not give details of his relationship, if any, with the Prime Minister.
It is possible that I knew the Prime Minister. However, whether he was involved or not is an answer that he must give, not me.
In his heyday, when he was making huge weekly shipments of cocaine, later ran for public office in Colombia, had friends in Hollywood, and was one of the richest men in the world. Now, except for a rare visit, later spends 23 hours a day in a 6x6 cell. Before being taken back to his cell, later made an apology for glorifying cocaine and said he now thinks drugs are bad. American authorities say all that comes a little late from the man who virtually invented the big-time cocaine business. Brian Ross, NBC News, Miami.
In a Miami courtroom late this afternoon, government lawyers introduced what could be a key piece of evidence against Noriega. It's a photograph of the general meeting with Cuban leader Fidel Castro. A U.S. government witness has testified that the two met to discuss dealings with bosses of the Colombia cocaine cartel. Drug wars were blamed for much of last year's record murder rate in Washington, D.C., of course, and so far this year, it's even bloodier. Washington today recorded its 28th killing this month, the 17th since last Friday. And there is this note about death in New York's Harlem. Statistics show that men there now have less chance of living past the age of 40 than men in Bangladesh. The death rate for Harlem men is twice that for American whites.
You don't have to go to Harvard to learn beef is nutrient dense. We're talking protein, iron, B12, and zinc. I didn't go to Harvard, went to Yale instead. Beef, real food in Yale, Washington.
You can search gourmet coffee shops from New Orleans to New York to San Francisco, and still you won't find a gourmet coffee like Gourmet Supreme, a new Folgers right in your market. It's mountain-grown Colombian, blended with select gourmet beans for an enticing aroma and gourmet taste.
You really brighten your day when you started out gourmet. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
New Folgers Gourmet Supreme in the black can.
You want a deal? Well, here comes the deal.
Now, get $1,000 cash back or low 4.8 APR financing for up to 48 months on all new Cutlass Supremes.
This deal is not just another deal.
It's Oldsmobile's new generation celebration. We've made it possible for our dealers to pass along millions of dollars to their customers and other models, too. Hurry, these deals won't last forever.
This is a deal on a new generation Oldsmobile.
When arthritis specialists are concerned about aspirin irritation, this is the brand they recommend most. Not Bayer, Ecotrin, with the orange safety coat to help protect your stomach. The more aspirin you take, the more you need the right brand. That's Ecotrin, and that's the truth.
Oat bran. It's one of history's biggest health food fads. Some research studies have suggested that eating oat might help lower blood cholesterol. Well, that fad soon may be fading. NBC Science correspondent Robert Bazell reports tonight on a new, highly sophisticated study of oat bran.
The idea that oat bran has a special ability to lower cholesterol is a national obsession, a multi-billion-dollar industry. And according to the latest research, it is just plain wrong.
We conclude that there's nothing special about oat bran. It doesn't specifically lower cholesterol.
Dr. Frank Sachs and Janice Swain of Brigham and Women's Hospital and the Harvard Medical School had volunteers eat this much oat bran daily as meal, muffins, or mush. They found that foods made from oat bran did not lower cholesterol any more than foods made from plain white flour like white bread.
The benefit of oat bran would be the same as the benefit of other cereal products like wheat, which we studied, or probably rice or corn.
The researchers concluded that people who eat large amounts of food made from any grain get filled up, so they eat less fat, and that is why their cholesterol goes down. The Quaker Oats Company has aggressively advertised its products as lowering cholesterol.
You eat Quaker oatmeal regularly, you could bring that cholesterol down more.
A new ad features Robert Kowalski, whose book, The 8-Week Cholesterol Cure, sold 2.25 million copies and did a great deal to promote oat bran sales. Quaker Oats says it is not bothered by the latest research.
We have no plans at all to change our advertising as a result of this study.
But analysts say the research will affect sales.
I think this type of news would certainly slow the growth, if not absolutely kill the growth of those type of products.
The oat bran craze has sparked sales not just of cereal, but of products ranging from potato chips sprinkled with oat bran to pancake mix with oat bran. Oat bran is a source of fiber. Experts agree that dietary fiber can help prevent colon cancer and other diseases. But people can get fiber by eating fresh fruits and vegetables and many kinds of cereals besides oat bran. The Harvard study also found that oat bran causes more stomach and intestinal discomfort than many other cereals. Robert Bazell, NBC News, Boston.
And a new front opened today in the struggle for animal rights. Activists called for a global boycott against one of the world's leading makers of cosmetics. Their goal, to get the company to stop testing its products on live animals in laboratories. More now from NBC's Roger O'Neill.
Try this on. Now that color is called Stay Bronze.
Americans spend $18 billion a year trying to look and smell good.
You got that confidence.
Commercials bombard us with the message, but animal rights activists have a different message.
There is a hidden ingredient in every L'Oreal product, and that hidden ingredient is animal suffering and animal death.
With today's announcement of a boycott against industry giant L'Oreal, animal rights activists stepped up their 10-year fight to stop cosmetic testing with animals. L'Oreal says the boycott is unfair.
Actually, only 5% of our products are now tested on animals, mice and rats only, and this for consumer safety.
But animal rights groups say it's cruel and use pictures which they say were secretly taken in cosmetic testing labs to make their point. Cosmetic and fragrance companies have been using animals for 60 years to test their products. Now, some major cosmetic firms have stopped using animals. Others are moving in that direction. At Mary Kay Cosmetics, which has suspended animal testing, technicians now use cell cultures in test tubes to check for adverse reactions to chemicals and cosmetics.
We can compare how the new shampoo does versus the old shampoo in this kind of test system and see which one is milder, instead of having to use animals for that.
Company President Dick Bartlett credits the animal rights movement for the change.
Our research showed an increasing level of concern on the part of the American public for animal testing or medical research use of animals.
But a spokesman for the cosmetic industry takes a dimmer view.
What's happening here with the animal activists is this is a war against the consumer, a war against product safety.
Consumers apparently don't see it that way. They are buying more and more products in stores which make a point of offering animal cruelty-free cosmetics.
And I don't believe that an animal should die for my beauty.
Even the big companies are listening to the message. Roger O'Neill, NBC News, Denver.
No tough sinus cold is going to sideline these guys. Congestion, pressure, maximum strength Dristan is tougher to sweep away congestion, pressure, and pain. And it won't make you drowsy. When you can't call in sick, call on Dristan.
Yeah, I sure can. We have just about hourly flights here.
6th of October, United flight number 725.
Sure, I'd be happy. I'll help you with that. And your flight number?
Arriving in Tokyo at 5:10 p.m.
Both animals are also confirmed. You're welcome. Thanks for calling.
Business class.
Yeah, but I think you're
In a world fraught with phone frustration, people who fly come to learn of a singular exception, where wishes are granted with efficiency and grace.
Delafria Stokowitsky? Is that with an I or a Y?
United Airlines. Come fly the friendly skies.
For those considering a Toyota Camry, some revealing news. There's another 5-passenger sedan with front-wheel drive, fuel-injected engine, roomier trunk, and it's $1,200 less than the Toyota Camry. In fact, this German-engineered 1990 Volkswagen Jetta GL, including its new features, costs less than last year. So stop tearing your hair out about new car prices. It's time to think about Volkswagen again.
The first step toward a whole new future. During Century 21 Career Opportunity Week and our career sessions, you'll find out why we're #1 and how our training and innovative support programs could make you #1. The right place is Century 21. The right time is now. Call your local Century 21 office today.
Career Opportunity Week, January 15th through the 21st.
When constipation strikes, you feel bloated, twisted, and fibers so slow. You want fast medicine, X-Lax. It lets your body work naturally to put you back on top of the world. Fast, X-Lax, the right medicine.
Even after death, Charles Stewart stirs strong feelings. He first attracted sympathy when he told Boston police a black man fatally shot his pregnant wife. Then after Stewart took his own life, police revealed that he was the prime suspect in the killing. Now it's the police themselves who are under attack. More now from NBC's Fred Briggs.
Just hours after the shooting of the Stewarts, Boston's mayor gave orders to his police commissioner.
I've asked him to put every single available detective in the city of Boston on this case.
That led to a full court press by police in black neighborhoods and questions over the way police went about it. It was not a good time to be a black male under 40, as Charles Stewart described his assailant.
Boston police and detectives just singled out the whole area as a suspect.
Eventually, police were led to Willie Bennett. Seeing Bennett in a police lineup, Stewart said, "It looks like him." In an affidavit, detectives swore they talked to Bennett's teenage nephew and two of the nephew's friends. They said Bennett admitted the shooting, showed off the gun used, and gave details of the crime.
Me and my friend Derek, we wasn't around. Was not around.
That friend, Derek Jackson, claims police threatened him with a beating in prison if he denied hearing Bennett say what was in the affidavit. So Jackson says he told police what they wanted to hear, even told a grand jury before recanting. Bennett was never charged, but many wonder what would have happened if Charles Stewart hadn't, in effect, absolved Bennett by jumping off this bridge. And the way Boston police handle high-profile crimes is coming under criticism.
They find the suspect, and then they go about trying to squeeze the evidence into this preconceived mold.
And when Charles Stewart broke that mold, the city's apology wasn't well received by its black members.
To apologize is nothing. That's like stabbing me in the back and pulling the knife out and telling me I'm sorry.
State officials are looking into this now.
We're going to conduct a thorough investigation, a credible investigation, and take appropriate action and let that action speak for itself.
There was another murder in Boston this week. A white college student robbed and stabbed by a group of young blacks, according to witnesses. Police kept it quiet for 24 hours, and when the press was told, this didn't become the day's major story. Part of the Stewart case legacy may be that this week's killing made some news, but no waves. Fred Briggs, NBC News, Boston.
And as you can see in that newspaper, Massachusetts Governor Michael Dukakis made a highly unusual admission. His state suffered because of his presidential campaign. In his final State of the State address last night, Dukakis recalled that when he won the Democratic nomination, he was swept up by the excitement and the euphoria.
But a funny thing happened on the road to the White House. I ran a great campaign for the primary and a lousy one for the final. I lost, and in the process, Massachusetts took a very unfair beating. And I feel terrible about it.
Last night was the first time that Kitty Dukakis had appeared in public since her recent treatment for alcohol abuse. She said that she was feeling much better.
Crosswords and croissants mean Sunday breakfast at our house, complemented by the rich, fresh flavor of Sunsweet pitted prunes.
Sunsweet, an 8-letter word that means delicious.
Only one prune tastes unsweet.
This dry skin itch, won't anything stop it fast?
Lanacane will. Lanacane shuts off the itch like a switch, instantly. Look, Vaseline Intensive Care can't. Jergens can't. These can't. Only Lanacane cream quiets the itch nerves that cause dry skin itch, instantly, on contact, as it deep moisturizes to help heal rough, dry skin. For dry skin itch, every itch.
Lanacane does shut off the itch, like a switch, instantly.
This looks like something my mom would eat. It's kind of quiet, conservative. I don't think I can get into this. I mean, it's just a bunch of flakes. It doesn't taste the way it looks. I like the way it crunches. Maybe it's good because it's simple. Wait, don't tell me. I'm just like my mother.
Kellogg's Cornflakes.
Cornflakes?
Taste them again for the first time.
Doctors measure back pain by how far you can bend. Extra Strength Dones is made for back pain relief with an ingredient these pain relievers don't have. Dones makes back pain go away. Extra Strength Dones, the back specialist.
Some discouraging news tonight about the ivory trade, which is threatening the wild elephant herds of the world. Hong Kong and China declared today They will not obey an international ban on ivory trade organized by a UN wildlife organization. They're two of the top markets for ivory in the world, so this is a major setback. In just 10 years, the number of African elephants has been cut in half, primarily as a result of poaching. However, wildlife experts haven't given up. In Namibia, in Southwest Africa, they've come up with a unique protection plan for a rare breed of elephants. NBC's Robin Lloyd.
Northern Namibia, a parched land of unrelenting heat and savage beauty. Home to Africa's only population of desert-dwelling elephants. For centuries, these animals, along with herds of giraffes and antelopes, have lived in the isolation of these mountains. The Himbas, among Africa's oldest nomadic tribesmen, live here too. Like the animals, they have learned to adapt to the harsh environment. But poachers, most of whom come from other tribes, are threatening to do what nature has not: wipe out the elephants and other wildlife. Desperate to stop the slaughter, conservationists came to talk to the tribe's elders about the poachers. They proposed to make the Himbas the caretakers of the game, a strategy that appears to be working.
Our objective is to stop poaching, and that we are doing, or trying to do, by getting the community to come with us, and their job is to cover the ground, to keep track of what is going on in the field, so that if poachers do come into the area, the fact that they're there can be picked up quickly before damage is done.
The Himbas have come to see their own survival linked to the survival of the wild animals with whom they share this vast desert. Many of them realize if the animals disappear, so too will an important part of their heritage. The small settlement of Puros has now become a sentry post in the war against poaching. The people are given food rations in return for informing on poachers. Many of the men have been hired as auxiliary guards to watch over the game they now see as their own. This man says the animals have become an important part of his life. Throughout much of Africa, poor people struggling to survive have found poaching lucrative, even in some cases necessary to feed their families. But in the vast mountainous deserts of northern Namibia, poaching is being brought under control by a new group of conservationists, whose ancestors came here centuries ago and who have now become the guardians of the game. Robin Lloyd, NBC News, Puros, Namibia.
That's nightly news for this Wednesday night. I'm Tom Brokaw. I'll see you tomorrow night.
Hi, I'm Eileen Houston. You know, here at News 5, we think kids are pretty important. Maybe you've seen some of our The More You Know specials or Norma's 5 for the Family Reports. Well, this week on News 5, we're sharing information about your child's vision. And thanks to the Group Health Associates, you can call now to make an appointment and have your child's vision tested free. Just call 721-FIVE. Since 80% of what your child learns in school is through sight, wouldn't you like to know your child has the world in focus?
What's Denzel Washington's heart?
The only person that can see me is you.
Doing in Bob Hoskins' body?
You gotta help me find who killed me!
2 men.
Time for you to get your big, fat, extra crispy bucket of chicken, 2-liter Pepsi-Cola drinking body out of bed.
1 heart. And some serious complications. Heart condition. This time, the ghost does the busting. Rated R. See it Friday, February 2nd at theaters everywhere.
The great, true, one-of-a-kind taste of Cincinnati. Cincinnati recipe chili.
The critics are cheering. David Anson of Newsweek calls When Harry Met Sally explosively funny.
Great, thank you.
A buoyant comedy, maybe the year's most uproarious scene, says Gene Shalit of The Today Show.
Yes!
A comic Valentine to love and friendship, raves Time magazine. It's wonderful, romantic, and funny, says Joel Siegel of WABC TV.
Yeah.
And Siskel and Ebert give it 2 thumbs up.
I couldn't agree more.
When Harry Met Sally.
Tonight at 9 on Warner Home Theater.
Find out if you're a Kentucky Lottery winner tonight at 7:40 on Channel 5.
Inside Edition is here in New Orleans, where the television shows we watch are being bought and sold. If you are mad at TV for any reason, you'll want to see our report.
On Inside Edition, it is a smorgasbord of TV programs, glitz, glamour, and games.
You got it in for $100.
The place executives buy the shows they hope you'll watch. Inside Edition will be there, and we'll go shopping with Terry Racolta. She is the woman who spearheaded a drive to boycott certain programs. We'll get her opinion and take a look at what's new for the small screen. He was one of the Navy's finest, a supervisor in the construction of sonar on attack submarines. But he told authorities there was something wrong with the subs, and Navy lives were at risk. He didn't get a medal for his report. He got fired. Christmas never came to this house in Virginia. They are still looking for a 5-year-old girl.
And we just have to keep believing that we're going to get her back.
Welcome to Inside Edition. I'm Bill O'Reilly. We're glad you're with us today. This is Jackson Square in the French Quarter of New Orleans, a few blocks away from Bourbon Street. We are here because the TV industry is here for a convention. And what they're doing at the convention is buying and selling TV shows like Inside Edition. The competition is cutthroat. There are many more shows than time slots available. And there is pressure. Some of that pressure is coming from one housewife, a woman who has caused a giant ruckus in the television industry by trying to ban such shows as Married with Children. Vanessa Moody has the story.
Hard to believe it, but there's some very serious business going on here. What you and I see on our TV screens for years to come could be determined by the deals made here today.
It's a show with a little bit different twist.
Roger, you're the champion. David and Ursula are the challengers. Let's get it going.
Welcome to the Challengers, where today...
Preschool in Manhattan Beach, California. The woman who owned the school and her son were charged. Today, after a trial of 33 months at a cost of $15 million, a verdict. NBC's Heidi Schulman.
All of the verdicts are the same. They will be read.
When the verdicts were read in court, defendants Ray Buckey and Peggy McMartin Buckey sat calmly.
Not guilty.
But across the hall, parents and children wept. They said the system failed them.
It's real tough when your child looks up and say, I thought they want the truth. I thought they want to do what's right. I thought they want to put bad people away and protect kids. And you have to say, yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be, but it doesn't always work out that way.
I want everyone out there to know the truth. And they're guilty. And if we, this is a court proceeding. This isn't justice.
Jurors said it wasn't that they didn't believe children had been molested. Most thought some children were abused.
In one sense or another, by someone.
But they said the evidence wasn't clear who was responsible.
Proving it that happened at the preschool with these defendants was kind of shaky.
They said the children's testimony was tainted from the very beginning of the case, nearly 6 years ago, when 7 teachers were arrested at the preschool amid public hysteria. Charges were later dropped against 5, but not before psychologists interviewed hundreds of children. Children jurors felt were led.
The children were never allowed to say in their own words what happened to them. And to me, that was crucial.
It will never be known whether or not the children were actually molested or whether they were led to believe they were molested. The parents have to live with this, and there's nothing that I can say or anyone else can say to make them feel better. We did the best job we could do with the information that was given to us.
Their verdict came after the longest criminal trial ever in this country. For 5 years, Ray Buckey was locked up without bail, said the district attorney.
The very idea that a case that goes to trial for 2.5 years can lead to a rational result is itself preposterous.
Jurors, too, said the process was too long and everybody lost.
I don't think anybody came out of this case the winner better off than they were before.
And as Peggy Bucky left court, totally free for the first time in 6 years, she had a warning.
Well, the only thing I can say to all of you, if it can happen to 7 innocent people, it can happen to any of you. And if it had not been for my faith in God, I would not be here today.
Ray Bucky will be back in court in 2 weeks to see whether he will be re-prosecuted on 13 counts on which the jury deadlocked. Since he has already spent 5 years in jail, a retrial seems unlikely. Heidi Schulman, NBC News, Los Angeles.
Experts in this area around the country said they were dismayed but not surprised by this verdict of not guilty. They said the McMartin case was a textbook example of how not to prosecute child abuse charges.
We have learned a great deal from it. We have a lot more to learn, and many cases have been successfully prosecuted since this case began. People who fear for their children shouldn't look to prosecution to protect them. They need to learn how to protect their children, and we need to learn how to better safeguard daycare settings.
Other experts contacted by NBC News said the McMartin case demonstrates the need to improve methods for dealing with children called to testify in molestation cases. Only about 10% of the daycare child abuse cases reported end up in court, but one study shows a conviction rate of 86% for those cases. Also coming up here tonight on NBC Nightly News, Gorbachev tells his critics that they are rabble, and he calls up more troops. And we'll show you what happened early this morning in Las Vegas. A fireman saved a man from raging waters rushing through a storm drainage.
Honey, why did you buy Cremora Light?
Because Cremora Light has 70% less saturated fat than Coffee Mate Light.
So you did it because you care.
No, because I'm smart.
New Cremora Light, less saturated fat, no cholesterol.
Having the flu is a nightmare. Your throat's so sore. You're congested. You cough. Body aches all over. But now, there's Theraflu, the first and only hot medicine made just for flu symptoms. Theraflu, with a hot liquid like doctors recommend. Strong therapy for fever and cough. Strong therapy for aches and pains. Next time the flu strikes you, strike back with Theraflu.
Now, Hormel chili and Dinty Moore beef stew also come in single-serve microwavable bowls. It's just that simple.
Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev was fighting back today against Muslim extremists in Azerbaijan and against his critics in Moscow. He called up reservists to reinforce the Soviet forces trying to keep peace in Azerbaijan. And NBC's Peter Kent reports at the same time he dismissed speculation that his economic reform is now failing.
Faced with the worst crisis of his 5 years in power, Gorbachev lashed out at those responsible for the continuing strife in Azerbaijan. Gorbachev blamed not only the Muslim extremists who have murdered Armenians, but Armenian vigilantes who've attacked army barracks, seizing everything from light weapons to tanks. They claim they have to take the law into their own hands because Soviet forces haven't protected them.
We have enough guns now, and we will have more.
An Azerbaijani spokesman in Moscow today says that's why the Muslims must fight on. The religious and territorial passions fueled a sixth straight day of fighting, with many of the 11,000 Soviet peacekeeping troops now blocked by barricades. The Soviet defense minister mobilized army reserves today, saying that wartime strength is needed to restore order. But even as the Soviet leadership copes with this crisis, another's brewing next door in the Republic of Georgia. There have been wildcat strikes and mass rallies for independence. And in the Baltic republics, the crusades for independence continue as well. In Moscow tonight, renewed demonstrations against the communist monopoly on government. All these problems have raised questions about Gorbachev's hold on power. But veteran Soviet specialist George Kennan believes the Soviet leader is safe for now.
It is doubtful, in my opinion, that he could have remained in his present office were it not for the fact that none of his senior colleagues has any program to offer as an alternative.
In his speech today, Gorbachev appealed for support.
Мы просто так жили, больше жить не будем. Да, перестройка нам нужна как воздух. Нужна для того, чтобы раскрыть возможности нашего строя, социалистического строя.
Still, there are many in the Soviet Union who wonder how long Gorbachev can continue to juggle the ever-increasing number of crises which confront him. Peter Kent, NBC News, Moscow.
Romania's new leaders conceded today they acted too quickly when they called a referendum on banning the Communist Party and restoring the death penalty. The government said it will now stick with its decision to ban capital punishment and allow the party to be legal, so the vote was canceled today. The ousted communist leader of Bulgaria, Todor Zhivkov, was placed under house arrest today. He's charged with corruption and stirring up ethnic hatred during his long rule in that country. One communist country still resisting reform is China, but today it did report the release of almost 600 people arrested during the bloody crackdown on the democracy movement last spring. It said the prisoners had pleaded guilty and repented. However, apparently they did not release any of the leading student activists from that movement. This man is Hitoshi Motoshima. He's the outspoken mayor of Nagasaki, Japan. He has dared to criticize Japan's imperial family, and today he was shot for that. Motoshima was shot in the back, a single bullet piercing his left lung. After surgery, he was reported to be out of danger. Police later arrested the leader of a right-wing group and said he had confessed to the shooting. The mayor received several death threats after saying that Emperor Hirohito bore some responsibility for World War II.
Took the almonds and they flaked and we shook them both up. You get the almond delight when you taste them both together. Almonds and the flakes, that makes it taste better. Almond delight, it's the best.
Red Lobster.
Tonight, 30 shrimp, just $8.95.
Red Lobster for the seafood.
Scampi, and oh, golden fried.
Red Lobster for the seafood lover.
Grilled and lemon pepper. 30 shrimp on one plate, just $8.95.
Red Lobster for the seafood lover in you.
And kids get shrimp, a complete meal, just $1.95.
Don't let morning breath ruin a good morning. Use Scope. Scope has 2 powerful ingredients to kill 90% of the bacteria that cause morning breath. Scope, the best thing, first thing in the morning.
The rush of icy clean freshness. Now you can feel it every morning with the power of peppermint. Peppermint Scope.
Today brought new evidence that inflation still is with us. The government reported that consumer prices last month increased 0.4 of a point. The inflation rate for all of last year topped 4.5%. That's the highest rate since 1981. Meanwhile, housing construction slumped badly in December, falling 8%. For all of 1989, housing starts dropped to their lowest level since the recession year of 1982. They're called Uptown. That's a brand new cigarette that has been designed specifically to be sold to blacks in this country, and they're going on sale soon. Such targeting of one market segment is nothing new, of course, but this sales pitch is meeting some heavy resistance, including an attack today by the U.S. government's highest-ranking health official. More now from NBC's Robert Hager.
R.J. Reynolds has said it expects Uptown to appeal most strongly to blacks and plans to test market the cigarette here in Philadelphia. 40% of the city's population is black. The cigarette is flavored with menthol. Sales figures indicate blacks prefer menthol. It'll be a little stronger than average, more nicotine and tar, and will be packed with the filters at the bottom of the pack because research shows many black smokers open packs from the bottom, where cigarette ends are less likely to be crushed. Ads showing black couples are planned for black publications, Ebony, Essence, and others. All that's what caused U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Louis Sullivan's angry reaction at an appearance here today.
At a time
when our people desperately need the message of health promotion, Uptown's message is more disease, more suffering, more death. I must condemn this without equivocation.
Cigarette companies have targeted special markets before, most notably Virginia Slims for women. But blacks as a group are especially vulnerable. Already 20% more likely than whites to smoke, 33% more likely than whites to have high blood pressure, 38% more likely to die of heart disease, 28% more likely to die of lung cancer, all associated with smoking. Again, Secretary Sullivan.
Just when our citizens require a new culture of character, the makers of Uptown are promoting a culture of cancer.
A coalition of 30 Philadelphia groups has been formed to fight against Uptown. Sharon Sutton of the local Lung Association.
We will not accept this Uptown brand of cigarettes because we're not going to accept this death.
The test marketing is to begin February 5th and last here in Philadelphia for 6 months. The goal of opponents is to not only block the test marketing, but prevent Uptown from ever reaching the market anywhere. Robert Hager, NBC News, Philadelphia.
R.J. Reynolds, for its part, says it will have no comment about Sullivan's comment today. From Las Vegas tonight comes a memorable story of heroism. Rescue workers braving floodwaters in early morning darkness to save a life. The life of a man whose Jeep had washed into a culvert and overturned. At first, they could not be certain anyone was in the vehicle, but once they knew there was, they spared no effort despite the danger to themselves. Firemen got out, and the man pulled from the Jeep had been submerged for 20 minutes, but doctors treated him with an experimental blood warming technique. They say now that his vital signs are stable, his condition is critical, but it is improving tonight.
If you have a cold and take Sudafed, there's something you should know. Contact Maximum Strength Caplet. Stop the sneezing and runny nose. Sudafed can't.
Gesundheit.
Until there's a cure, there's Contact.
If they could see us now out on the deep blue sea, underneath the moon and stars, just you and me.
What are you waiting for? Come aboard and see why Carnival's the most popular cruise line in the world.
Hello, little Karen. Is your daddy home?
2 calls at 7 p.m. from L.A. to San Francisco.
No, I don't want to speak to your doll, sweetie. I want to speak to your daddy.
With MCI Primetime, this 15-minute call costs 31% less than AT&T's regular evening rate.
Put daddy on the phone.
And Primetime lets you save no matter how long you talk. So the choice that's right
Just put the phone down, sweetie. But don't hang up.
is the choice on the right. MCI Primetime. Real savings 24 hours a day. Call now, get 1 month free.
Big story, Herb.
What, they finally found a substitute for the sweet roll. Hey.
Nutrigrains, almond raisins.
What is this, nuts and twigs?
Try almonds, raisins, and these great flakes made with brown rice.
But there's no sugar added.
Herb, you're gonna love the taste, even though it's healthy.
Hey, don't you have a story to write? How's this? Man eats healthy food and lives.
The amazing taste of Nutrigrains almond raisins.
It's news.
We're in luck. Did you know sirloin's only 177 calories and round tip steaks a mere 162? Where would we be without beef? Out of luck, I'd say. Beef. Real food and luck. Wisconsin.
A Panamanian businessman described as a close associate of Manuel Noriega is in the United States tonight, and he is caught up in the criminal justice system. He is Noriega's co-defendant in a drug trafficking case. He is Enrique Kiki Pretel. Today he pleaded not guilty to charges of conspiracy in the smuggling of almost 1.5 tons of marijuana from Colombia to the United States. He was flown late yesterday to Florida from Panama, where he surrendered to U.S. forces. The White House acknowledged today that Vice President Dan Quayle has had to cancel part of his Latin American travel plans for later this month because of opposition in that part of the world to the Panama invasion. Reports say that 2 countries have denounced that invasion, Venezuela and Mexico, and they've also said that Quayle will not be welcome there. The latest NBC News Wall Street Journal poll shows that in large part because of the Panama invasion here at home, however, President Bush is enjoying exceptional popularity. His approval rating is the highest given any president since we started polling 14 years ago. Of the 1,500 voters we surveyed earlier this week, 71% said they approve of the job the president is doing. Only 19% disapproved. 72% supported the Panama invasion. 18% called it a bad idea. Still, it is clear that American voters don't always agree with the president on spending priorities. 67% said defense spending should be cut. 26% said no. On domestic spending, 22% favored cuts. 70% said don't cut in those areas. Most Americans said they think the government is spending too little on the homeless, 79%. On education, 76%. Health care, 71%. And fighting drugs, 67%. As for cutting the budget deficit, Americans said they trust Congress more than the president by a margin of 2 to 1. And on Assignment Earth tonight, a story of enormous and destructive waste of public money. River's Journey, the Kissimmee River in southern Florida. It's a textbook case of how to destroy nature in the name of progress. Now, the state of Florida wants to restore that river at huge taxpayer expense. NBC's Ed Rabel in Florida tonight.
Scott Boland, who's been hunting and fishing along the Kissimmee for 40 years, remembers how it used to be.
It was a meandering river, and of course it was some of the greatest freshwater fishing in the whole world.
Sometimes there are glimpses still of how the river was and the wildlife it supported until 1961. That was the year Florida officials, in the name of flood control, ordered the Corps of Engineers to start digging. The $28 million concrete channel cut the winding river's 100-mile-long path in half.
It was just like somebody took a part out of my life. The Kissimmee was no more.
40,000 acres of wetlands were drained to create pasture land. Manure and fertilizers befouled the water. Billions of fish and shrimp were killed.
There were other options to digging a canal, but those were deemed entirely too expensive. And what they were really saying is that the environment had a very low value back in the 50s and 60s.
A measure of just how big a mistake was made here is how expensive it will be to put Mother Nature back together again. One estimate sets the cost at $275 million. Today, Florida's governor asked the federal government to pay 80% of the cost.
Washington knows it will be coming.
Earlier, cheaper plans were rejected. Only the most expensive plan, backfilling most of the old canal to reflood the wetlands, will work, environmentalists say. Others disagree.
It's a boondoggle. It's a $250 million sandbox for the environmentalists and engineers to play in. It just isn't going to produce the benefits that are worth that kind of money.
But the experts say in 10 years, the Kissimmee will be better than ever. The birds and the fish will be back. Nature will be in harmony again.
It doesn't pay to try to change things from the way the Creator created it.
This time, we will change the earth, people here are saying, but we will leave it intact. Ed Rabel, NBC News on the Kissimmee River.
The Space Shuttle Columbia is heading home tonight after a highly successful mission. Today, the astronauts received a telephone call from President Bush, who talked about a tumble the shuttle took after getting a faulty electronic signal.
President, welcome aboard Columbia. We hear you very clearly.
What I'm calling to do is to congratulate you and the crew after all those somersaults, but doing this superb job up there on this mission.
The astronauts spent their last day in space testing Columbia's flight control system. Landing is scheduled tomorrow morning at Edwards Air Force Base in California just before 6 Eastern Time. And 3 days after that crippling long-distance telephone tie-up, AT&T said today it wants to repay its customers for the inconvenience of it all. It plans to take an average of 1/3 off its regular prices on February 14th. You'll remember, that's Valentine's Day.
Tomorrow will be a disaster if I don't get some Z's.
Nitol will help you get your Z's.
Nitol safely helps you fall asleep fast.
Nitol will help you get your Z's.
The evaluation committee is in your office.
This is my husband, Paul. He's under a lot of pressure. But now he's taking charge of his health, eating right by cutting down on cholesterol and saturated fat. That's why I cook with Puritan, with no cholesterol and proven 94% saturated fat-free. Better than any other kind of oil.
Your wife called sneakers before dinner?
Hey, Mr. Principal, carry your books?
Anytime.
Paul's feeling great, and I am too.
Puritan, make it your oil for life.
This is big. For the first time in my life, I understand what nutrition is. And I know where to start. The Surgeon General of the United States recommends 7 guidelines for nutritious eating. Then you do a little homework and you find one leading cereal meets all 7. Total. That's right. This one. Whole wheat Total. So now you understand. What the Surgeon General recommends, Total delivers.
Doctors measure back pain by how far you can bend. Extra Strength Dones is made for back pain relief with an ingredient these pain relievers don't have. Dones makes back pain go away. Extra Strength Dones, made for back pain relief.
So much is changing in Eastern Europe at such a rapid pace, it is difficult to keep track of it all. And it's more than political and economic change after all. It's a whole way of life that's being transformed. For example, the awesome sports machine of East Germany. As NBC's Martin Fletcher tells us tonight, like almost everything else in East Germany, that was a machine reserved for the elite, but no more.
They go to the wall. It is the favorite taking the event. Christian Otto of East Germany wins.
In the last Olympics, tiny East Germany with 17 million people won more medals than the United States.
Schenk, once again, third attempt, 15 feet 5 inches to tie his personal record.
Our system was the best system. That's why we have the best athletes in the world.
But the sports system, like everything else communist in East Germany, is under attack and crumbling.
We are blamed now for the system. I mean, now we know we are used too. They just used us. I'm really disappointed what was going on in the government.
From an early age, kids with talent were channeled towards Olympic gold. These 5- and 6-year-olds are bussed straight from kindergarten. They train 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. The aim, to win more medals than anyone else, to give communism a good name.
These kids have had a great beginning, but the system's changing. The East German medal machine is dying. The new emphasis here will no longer be on breeding Olympic gold medal winners, but on making sport more available to all.
The Communist Sports Federation kept this ice skating rink and other major facilities just for elite sportsmen and secret police. Since the peaceful revolution, public outrage forced the Communist Federation to resign, and now, for the price of $2, anyone can come. Werner Neumann is part of the new sports leadership.
The Communist Party gave all the money for the sport, for the top competitive sport. But we haven't got enough tennis places, we haven't got enough swimming pools. These things must be changed.
But there's a price.
The dominance the GDR had in the past has gone.
Uwe Timmermann, who won gold in the shot put, has no illusions. He says East Germany used sport to hide its problems, but that's over.
In the next Olympics, we won't do so well because standards will go down. But as more people have access to sport, we may do better in team sports.
The aim, to take sports funding away from the schools for champions and give it to the people, even if that means less Olympic gold. Martin Fletcher, NBC News, East Berlin.
That's Nightly News for this Thursday night. I'm Tom Brokaw. Jane Pauley will be here tomorrow night. I'll see you again on Monday.
Hi, I'm Eileen Houston. You know, here at News 5, we think kids are pretty important. Maybe you've seen some of our The More You Know specials or Norma's 5 for the Family Reports. Well, this week on News 5, we're sharing information about your child's vision. And thanks to the Group Health Associates, you can call now to make an appointment and have your child's vision tested free. Just call 721-FIVE. Since 80% of what your child learns in school is through sight, wouldn't you like to know your child has the world in focus?